Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how to make this pretty card, and yes, it's another one that looks kind of like a quilt because the quilted cards have been very popular on my channel. The technique we're going to do today is going to be similar to the way we did the puff quilt card, except instead of using post-it notes, we're going to use a stencil. It's also very similar to how we did the hexagon card, where we embossed everything, but this is all done on just one piece of cardstock with the inks that you have, so you don't have to go and find a bunch of pattern papers that go together. All you have to do is look in your stash and find some ink colors that you like. This video is brought to you by Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com, and I've got a 20% off coupon code for you. Use the coupon code Lindsay17 to save 20% off your order. So let's get right to it. The first thing you're going to need is a piece of cardstock, and this is 5x7, and I am using this Starburst Stencil, and this is by Heidi Swapp, I believe, but you can go to the craft store and find any sort of stencil with big holes in it. That's the only real rule. And then I just have a little painter's tape there to just tack it down. Now, here is a quick tip for you. Whenever you go and you buy the mini inks, and a lot of times they come in a set of 4, you know what? They've just done a lot of design work for you. So this Tim Holtz set of inks that I picked up, these are all fairly bright citrusy colors. So I know these are designed to work together. And pretty much any company that comes out with a little quad set, they are designed to work together. So maybe they're all jewel tones, or they're all neutral tones, or they're all Victorian tones, or they're all subtle tones. They're designed to work together. So just pick 4 inks from one collection and you're going to be all set. So I've also got a color duster in each color. You can see right there, I've got my orange, my blue, my yellow, and my pink. And remember, you don't have to have a duster for every color. Just have one for like your pink family and one for the blue family, and that'll be just fine. The next thing I did was I chose a few stamps. So I pretty much picked 1 stamp for each color, and we're going to do some tone on tone. I did pick 2 stamps for the pink because I got this pretty rose here, so I'm going to use that. So I'm going to start off with this nice pink. It's like picked raspberry, I think is the name, and I'm just going to stamp the roses in here. I'm going to turn my stamp as I go. Just make sure you don't stamp into the neighboring hole there, and you'll be all set. I think I want to put one more big one, and I have my stamps in a little dish with a baby wipe in it because it keeps them clean. Oops, just knocked over my thing. And we're going to be trimming this down a little bit, so don't worry if it's a little messy at the end. Now, while I've got the pink out, I'm going to look around and figure out where else I might want to have like a ray of pink. So I think I'm going to do one up here. And we're going to be adding some ink with the blending brushes, so don't feel like you have to fill in every little like spot. And I think I'll do one right over here too, but that's kind of big, so maybe I'll just try to get a couple in with this little one. And then I'm just going to grab my ink tool, the little stencil stipple brush here, and the ink, and I'm going to dust this right over. And what this is going to do is actually pick up the extra ink from my stencil too and spread it out so I don't waste any. This tip right here came from Judy of Judykins. She is an amazingly talented stamper, and she showed me this at a stamp show, and I've always loved this technique. I'm going to cover this as, she actually makes these brushes too. I don't think she still makes them though. We've had a hard time finding them. Okay, I did accidentally get over a little bit into some of these other ones, so I'm going to have to be careful about that. But I think if I do like an orange here, that'll cover that up all right. So for the orange ones, I'm using this collection of daisies. This is from the Stars and Stripes Forever. The roses I used were from Brambly Rose, but I'll link everything up below so you can see where they all came from. So again, I'm going to go in and stamp a few of these, and maybe we'll do this one up here because I always also saw that I got a little bit of pink in there, and I think the orange will hide it. All right. Don't be afraid if you overlap. That's fine. There's nothing. You cannot mess this up. Okay, so please don't worry about that at all. And you can kind of even rock it in there in the corner if you need to fit things in. And again, I'm going to go in with the orange, but I am going to be careful here and kind of pinch my bristles together so that I don't get ink on my neighbor here. I'm using, these are Distress inks. Any dye-based ink will work. You do want a fairly juicy ink pad though. I try to keep my ink pads regularly inked anyway because I don't like to mess around with uninked ink pads. And now I'm going to do this vine here from Wisteria Frame. It's a pretty leaf vine. I'm going to use the turquoisey color. I think it's called Peacock Feathers. And I think I'm going to put it here just because I can see that I got a little bit of pink in there because I wasn't very careful when I was inking. See, that's why I like to leave the mistakes in though, because you might have that same issue and be like, oh shoot, I need to throw this away now. No, you don't. You can totally fix that. And I'm going to go over here because I can see I also got a little bit in there. I'm just kind of rotating the stamp as I go so that it doesn't look like everything's all lined up like a soldier. Sometimes I notice that in and especially on like papers that I don't like, pattern papers that I don't like, I'll see that it looks like all the like images are lined up like soldiers, and that's what I don't like. I just went through all of my pattern paper and I was getting rid of stuff, and that was one of the things that I didn't like about some paper. Okay, and the last one I'm using this, since it's the lightest color ink, I'm using a really solid bold colored bold flower. This one's from Summer's End, and it's just kind of like a nice happy daisy, and I like it that even in a really light colored ink it shows up really well. This one's pretty symmetrical. It doesn't really matter if you turn it too much, I don't think. Alright, and then I'm going to go in with my yellow color duster. I'll link all the supplies that I'm using in the video description. Remember, you can use whatever dye ink you have, but if you do have a collection, it's going to make your life much easier. Right. Oh, I forgot to do my blue. That's okay. Now, if I had a bunch of blue stamping next to my yellow areas, I wouldn't have wanted to brush over that because that would have contaminated my yellow brush. And if that happens, it's not a huge deal. You just have to wash the brush with like baby shampoo and water or dish soap and water and let it dry real good before you use it again. But the nice thing about this technique, having a brush for every color family, is that the ink builds up and it's almost like you have a little ink pad there, and you don't waste so much because you're using ink from previous applications as well. And I'm squeezing these bristles together to get them in there tight, and I'm just stippling in there in the points. Even though when we do our our centerpiece like that, see our centerpiece, it's going to be the points are going to be covered, so don't worry about that. So now what I want to do is just kind of wipe the excess ink off of my stencil. You could give it a good wipe down with a baby wipe after you've removed it if you want to, but I still want to do some work with a stencil on, so I don't want to do that yet. So now I've got a waterproof pen. Doesn't really matter if it's a waterproof or not. I wouldn't use a Sharpie just because like an alcohol pen will feather, or it can feather if you're not going really quick. And I'm just gonna go and make some like stitching marks here using the stencil as my guide. You could freehand it, that's totally fine, but I figured if I got this little plastic edge I can kind of go against, then I'll be all the better. So you want to do that for every one of these little sections. Okay, I took the stencil off and then I just trimmed it down so that it would be 6 3/4 by 4 3/4, so it would fit my 5 by 7 card base perfectly. And now that I've done that, I'm going to show you how to put a stitching mark on the card itself. And that can be done very easily using a foam pad and either a thumbtack, or you could even run this through a sewing machine if you wanted to. But my favorite method is to take a ruler and to take one of these scoring bugs, and these are made by EK Success, and just kind of roll it along every corner. And I do this, every edge rather, and I do this on the back side because I seem to get a more pronounced stitching dots on the front when I do that, but you can do it on the front side if you prefer. Make sure your mat is clean, that's the only thing, because you don't want to pick up crud on the front side of your card. But I just think it gives it a really nice homespun look. And if you can't find these from EK Success, they're called the Cutter Bee Bugs. I know Scorpel also has them because they also fit in the channels of their scoring boards. So I think that just gives you a really, really fun look there. Okay, now if you want to make that look a little more stitched, what I'd recommend doing is taking your ruler and a black pen, just like we did before, but this time I'm going to run this across the stitching lines. You want to have it lined up so it just kind of catches on each little dot, and it gives you kind of a hand stitched look. And it's okay if it stops and starts, because then it just looks a little bit more homey, I think. So you should kind of hear it kind of pop, 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 pop as it hits those bumps. And you might have to go slow if you have a really fine tip pen for it to catch. So you want to line that right up to the dots, and just do that for every side. The next thing we're going to do is emboss a design, and you can see on my finished card there's a just kind of like a pattern on the background there, and I'm going to use a different one here. I'm going to use a damask pattern here. It's a little bit different than the other one, so we'll see how that looks. I think it'll be pretty, so I'm just lining it in there under the patterned area, and I'm going to run that through my die cutter. The other thing I want to do is, I've already done this ahead of time. I have cut the mat and also a little sentiment, and this is an old Stampin' Up stamp, but I want to explain how I did that in case you are unfamiliar with stitching dies. So when I'm designing a card, I'll try a few options before I come up with what I'm actually going to teach, and this is one of my first versions. This is a pretty embossing powder. It's meant to go over colored ink, but I didn't think the Thanks a Bunch really showed up that well after I put the holographic the Stardust powder on there, but I'll show you how I would use this to cut out an image. So these come in a pair, and you have like you have a cutter and you have an embosser. So this is by Sizzix, and there's like a set of like 6 different pieces. So what you'd want to do first is put your larger cutting piece down. At least this is how I do it. Okay, make sure that's centered up, so you've got the Thanks a Bunch centered up in there. Then you take a little bit of washi tape, and you don't have it so it's on top of the image, but just like that. And then you run it through your die cutter to cut it. So then you're going to end up with that part cut out. So then what I do, and I'm just going to trace this with a pen just so you see kind of how it would cut out, because the cutting die is right on the inside of that mark. So when I take this off, after it's gone through the machine, that's the size it would cut out. So then what I do is I take the piercing part, the part that leaves the stitch line or the poke or the dotted line, and I just nestle that inside the area that I've cut out, and then I tape that down, because things can shift in your die cutting machine, and then I run that through, and then I end up with an element like that. So I have another set of circles which are by Lifestyle Crafts, and it has all these really super thin dies. So because these are so thick, they're so wide, they can't fit that many in a package. This one has tons of different sizes, so I just picked the next one up. That would give me just a little bit of a mat of a reveal, and I use that to cut that. So it took 2 different die sets to do this, but that's how you do it if you're looking to get that effect. I just wanted to make sure you know how to do that. If you maybe had these dies and you weren't sure how to use them, or you've been trying to use them and you haven't had very good success with it. So what I'm going to do now is run this through my die cutter, and I'll be right back. Okay, let's take a look at how this embossed. I like to try, if I'm doing a couple of cards, I like to try with a couple different folders just to see what my options are. This works pretty good. I probably could have gone with a tighter sandwich because there's some areas that aren't super puffy, but that's all right. I like this. Now I can keep this as it is white, or I could brush on some other ink like I did on this one. I brushed a little yellow on. I think I'll leave this plain white because you've seen how it looks with the yellow, and I also think it's nice to just show a couple different options. So now I'm going to adhere this to the card base, and I do want this to be nice and crisp. And I don't have a bone folder up here, but I do have this plastic ruler, so I'm just going to press down that really well and use my adhesive to glue this down. I like to put extra adhesive on when I'm working with an embossed panel, because sometimes the embossing makes the paper not contact quite as well, so you don't want it to come apart in the mail, so that's what I do. Now I can have this turned all sorts of different ways depending on where I want the Thanks a Bunch to be. That's what I love about stencils. That's what I love about doing your own thing, because you can make it exactly how you want. On this one, I put my Thanks a Bunch at an angle because I thought it was kind of cute, but maybe on this one I'll do it straight just so you can see the difference. So I'm going to use the dry adhesive to hook this down onto the black mat. But then I'm going to use foam squares to adhere the black mat onto my card. And yes, I'm still using these foam squares. Oh my gosh, I think I have a lifetime supply of these. And here we go. I'm just going to stick that right on here. And you could alter the colors based on your recipient. So if you have a recipient who likes jewel tones, or maybe you wanted to do like a Father's Day card and have like earth tones, or like hunter green and navy blue and stuff, as long as you keep colors that kind of are designed to go together, you can't go wrong. Or pick your own. Don't feel like you have to stick to somebody else's color palette. Now I want to use some sequins on here because I think it's just a pretty way to embellish a card. And I had tried a bunch of other embellishments that were a little bit more, I don't know, fancy or expensive or whatever, but I ended up liking the sequins the best. And these actually just came from the dollar store. So whenever I see sequins that I like, I'll pick them up. They're not very expensive. And then as needed, I, use them on a project. I keep them all in a big bin, so it would probably horrify a lot of people to see my my storage of them, but I'll show you. You guys want to be horrified? This is how I store my sequins. In a big old bin together, and a lot of them are loose, so I have a big sequin soup going on there. It just makes me happy. I love it. And I found these cute little butterflies, which I think are just adorable. And I actually have some different size sequins of these pink ones, so I might try mixing in a couple sizes here. And maybe I'll go with fewer sequins this time. I also have a pink butterfly. Maybe I'll try that. Oh, I like that. Okay, so I'm going to keep this one a little simpler than the other with fewer sequins. I'm going to use my zip dry glue. I had used a different glue on the other card that I had to dip a paintbrush in the end to get the glue out, so I think this will work a little bit better. I'm still not that used to having this around, and I really like it. This glue actually might be a little thick for sequins. Oh my gosh, it stuck to my finger. And I'm going to actually put the glue on this one because it's a little bit bigger. And just set that down. So another thing I want to do is add just a really subtle bit of shimmer, and I'm going to use some stickles for that. And this, I'd like to do this as my last step in a project because I am very klutzy and I will smear this. And I also realized that I get too much when I squeeze it out of the bottle, and it could just be because I'm not that familiar with using these. I just recently got these, so I'm going to put on just a little bit in a couple places here. And I'm going to spread it around with a paintbrush, and then I'll wash the paintbrush so it doesn't get ruined. But for me, it works a little bit better because it dries quicker, I don't tend to smear it, and I don't tend to get too much. Because if I just try to go around this whole thing with a tip, and it's probably my own lack of experience with this product, but when I do that, it gets really thick, and I end up getting it on the white paper where I don't really want it. And it just takes so long to dry. Plus I think I might be wasting it. Like I'm probably just squeezing too hard and putting too much out. I just haven't really developed a delicate touch with that. But there you go. That's how you make that card. I'm going to show you the finished one where I used teal as my accent color here. And you can kind of see the difference with the yellow, using the yellow, just brushing that yellow on versus the crisp white. I'm not sure which one I like better. I think I tend to like the yellow. It makes me look, it reminds me of like an older quilt that's maybe a little faded, sun faded or something, where it's got the yellow in the background. And this looks a little fresher and crisper. So it just depends on what you like personally. And of course, buttons would be a really cute embellishment for this. String, anything notion-y would be really cute. Stick pins, whatever you have on hand and whatever you like to use. It's up to you. That's a great thing about card making, is that we can all make it match the supplies we have on hand and our preferences. I want to thank you so much for watching today. If you want to get the stamps I use, check out our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com, and don't forget to use the coupon code Lindsay17 to save 20%. And if you're not already, join the mailing list. They have a weekly newsletter with lots of fun tips and ideas and projects that you're not going to see here on my website. So lots of ideas. So once you get these stamps, you're going to know exactly what to do with them. Thanks again for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this video. And until next time, happy crafting.